Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of Stewarding Family Wealth. I am your host, Amanda Pierce, and today I am joined by Randy Brunson and Sandy LaRue. They are both subject matter experts at Centurion Advisory Group, and today we will be speaking about choices. A few thoughts about choices and what we've learned along the way so far this year. Randy is actually the author of a commentary that he sends out on a regular basis, and we're going to be deep diving into some of the topics that he has received a great response from. And today we're going to unpack stewardship, trust, goals, growth, responsibility, grace, and rest. I'd like to start with stewardship, and I'm going to read just a little bit about stewardship and how it relates to Centurion Advisory Group. Stewardship. Choose to be a steward of your time, talent, treasure, and relationships. Choose to see your life as an opportunity to share what you have been given with others in a way that improves the quality of their lives. A mindset of stewardship helps release us from the tyranny of ownership. Very powerful. Again, I am joined by the subject matter experts here, Randy and Sandy, the Randy and Sandy Show. Randy, I'm gonna pass this along to you. First of all, how are you today?
I am glad to be here. How are you, Amanda?
I'm well, thank you, Randy.
Good.
You are the author and the brain power behind these sections here. So kind of dive in with us and expand a little bit about stewardship, please.
The concept, the word steward is an English word that goes back several hundred years to the steward of a manor or an estate in England or in Great Britain. So that's enough on the history lesson today, but the role of the steward was to care for what the lord of the manor owned. Okay, it was their responsibility to care for the primary home, the rest of the buildings, to oversee the people that worked the fields, the livestock, just whatever came under the domain of the lord of the manor. It was a steward's responsibility to make sure that things were running well, that the estate was profitable, and that the lord of the manor could live life as they chose. So that's some of the background. We use the word steward in the 21st century to communicate an approach to governance of our personal lives. Okay, and here's the role of the steward in the 21st century is to care for whatever we have been given. And when we look at our lives, if we look around our lives, we see that we have personal relationships, we have business relationships, we have time, which is about the only thing that we cannot replicate. We have dollars, and we have talents and experience, gifts of that nature that we've been given. Okay, so one thing we encourage people to think in terms of is to think of the gifts and the talents that we have been given literally as gifts. Okay, and so the question is, the relationships we have been given, the dollars we have been given, the time we have been given, and the experience and the gifts that are natural to our personal temperament, how can we use those, how can we steward them well to enhance the quality of life of those around us? Sometimes, and this is not necessarily unique to America, but many in America have taken this to an art form, and that is the concept of ownership. And certainly all of us have legal ownership of certain things, but from a mindset standpoint, what I have found is that if we internalize that we own everything, we own relationships, we own dollars, we own time, what that creates is that creates anxiety and fear and concern, because when we internalize ownership, what we fear is loss.
That makes sense.
And when we are willing to give up ownership and instead adopt a mindset of stewardship, where it's our role to care for and to enhance and to grow what we've been given, grow someone else's quality of life, help someone else be successful, grow our asset base, grow our income, continue to learn new skills, to enhance our skill sets, to make good use of time, to invest our time and our dollars well. When we take that approach, then we are released from the tyranny of ownership, and we can let go of fear and anxiety and concern, because it's not ours to start with. It's simply ours to manage and to steward well. So that's the concept of stewardship.
And that leads me to the next point, Randy. You said some key things there, and I actually made note: care for and enhance. And what you guys do at Centurion, and hence the name of this podcast, Stewarding Family Wealth. Obviously, that requires a lot of trust. If someone is going to entrust you with not only the relationship aspect,
Right.
but let you into their family,
Right.
in essence, and with their wealth. Now, I'd like for you to tell me about your friend Dave.
Sure. Dave is a colleague with just enormous, with years of experience. And he served as CEO of several companies. And he and I were visiting a couple of weeks ago, and the subject of trust came up. And I've learned that it's so valuable to always be learning. I wish I had learned to learn at a very young age, but I was almost 50 before I learned that I needed to become a lifelong student, which is a separate subject. But I was visiting with Dave, and Dave was talking about trust. And what Dave said, he said that trust is built through three things. And he described them as character, competence, and caring. And he went on to tell me that character is who we are, competence is what we know, and caring is what we do. Because words can come out of our mouth. One of the old dead French guys, his name was Molière, said, all men are like in what they dream, and all men are like in what they say. It is what they do that makes the difference. Something else that I heard one time is believe in people, but what, Sandy? Trust what?
Trust only action.
Okay, so it is what we do that makes the difference. So when it comes to trust, you can build trust through who you are, which is character, what you know, which is competence, and caring, which is the actions that you take on someone else's behalf.
I like that. That's very powerful. Obviously, you've taken some time and put a lot of thought into these key points. That leads me to the next one, Randy, and chime in, Sandy, I don't mean to leave you out, which is titled Goals. So to choose to set goals, to keep the list short, I really like that, because sometimes we get inundated with creating a list that's quite lengthy, and then we kind of just set ourselves up for failure. No more than 3 to 5. I like it, Randy. No more than 3 to 5 personal goals or professional/business goals. More than that, nothing is a priority, because everything is. Either of you, if you'd like to expand a little bit about goals within the choices.
The purpose of goals is to keep us focused. And my experience is that it is not the accomplishment of the goal itself that matters so much, but what matters, there are a couple of things that matter when it comes to setting goals. And one is the process that we put ourselves through as we identify goals. I want to fill in the blank, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. I want to, because most people can, if you say to someone, what do you want? Most people cannot answer that question with clarity. Mm-hmm. If you say to people, top 3 things that you want, one of the greatest teachers that ever lived, when someone would come to him and say, Master, Rabbi, help me, a common response from him was, tell me what you want. See, so many people do not know what they really want, and part of the process of setting goals is forcing each of us to identify what we want. So that's one of the great values in setting goals. It helps us bring clarity to what we want. The second value of setting goals is not the accomplishment of the goal itself. It's not what we get from it, it's who we become through the process of reaching that goal.
And accountability, does that come into play?
Accountability, mm-hmm. vulnerability, transparency. Mm-hmm. Okay? You bring me somebody that's vulnerable, transparent, and accountable, I will identify someone that's extremely promotable.
One more time for our listeners. Accountable, transparent, and
vulnerable. Vulnerability, transparency, and accountability. You bring somebody to me that's willing to engage in that way, and I will show you someone that's extremely promotable, because vulnerability and transparency requires humbleness, and those who are humble, hungry, and smart. Hungry, you know what you want, and most people aren't. They just want to get by. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'll show up, I'll get it done. Humble, hungry, and smart.
The hunger and the thirst kind of leads me into the next point here, which is growth. choosing personal growth. While goals are important, the process of personal growth is critical. It's the journey of becoming who we were designed to be by our Creator in order to maximize our impact during our time here. That's powerful. Obviously, we all want to grow and flourish, and I've heard the old adage, grow where you're planted. How do you feel about that, Randy?
That's true. There's this thought that's common in some self-help books, which is a fascinating industry in and of itself. But there's a thought that you and I can be anything we want to be. Okay? I can assure you that Randy Brunson cannot be an NBA basketball player. And by God's grace, he did not give me the desire to be an NBA basketball player.
But you have the height.
He does.
I cannot jump. So thank you for setting that up for me. So I'm not convinced that any of us can be anything we want to be, but we have been built and designed. We have been engineered for greatness, designed on purpose. When God put us together in our mother's womb, I believe there was a picture in the mind's eye of God of who we could be if we will allow him to do his greatest work in and through us, if we would let go of what one author calls our false self, if we would choose to simply allow God to do his great work through us, okay? And instead of getting stuck in this mindset of this is all I can do because anything else is outside my comfort zone or anything else is going to require something of me. Well, yeah, welcome to life. It's, life is hard. That's just life 101. Get over it, let's get after it, okay? And so personal growth requires a willingness to acknowledge that life is hard, to choose to identify what we want, and then choose to become who we were created to be. Okay, and in that journey, I believe doors will be opened for us where we will have the impact that we were designed to have. Okay, we were given a mandate. We were given a mandate to bring order to a disordered world. And if you look at the world in its natural state, or if you've driven out in the country and seen a home or a barn that's been there for 100 years or 150 years, but the home place has not been cared for 30 or 40 or 50 years, everything is in shambles, it's in disorder, it's in disarray, things are falling down. And one of our purposes as humans is to restore that order, is to bring order to a disordered world. Second law of thermodynamics. This is a layman's translation. But the second law of thermodynamics is that everything in its natural state moves from order to disorder. That is the natural state of the world. Now, Sandy has 3 children that are Georgia Tech graduates, and all of them can quote the law of thermodynamics in their sleep, I would expect. Okay? So in the natural world, it moves from order to disorder. When we were put here, we were given a mandate to rule, subdue, to multiply, and to bring order from disorder. So that's part of our responsibility. And one of the ways we accomplish that is choose to become who we were designed to be, to rule. And one of the ways that we evaluate our own growth is to look around our personal world or our business world, our families, the lives we touch in our business life, and ask ourselves this question: how are things under our domain going? Are people happy? Are they thriving? Is their world good? If you remember from the movie The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when Miss and Mrs. Beaver took Peter and Edmund and Susan and Lucy. I get that right? Those are the 4 names?
You did. I'm amazed.
Okay, and they left the winter wilderness, the White Witch, and they went over this mountain, and it opens up into this glorious scene where there's this beautiful clear stream, and the flowers on both sides of the stream are in full bloom, and the trees are healthy, and there are people there, and they are fully engaged in work, but it is meaningful work, and they are having a difference, but their world is absolutely thriving because it was under the care of Aslan, who ruled well. If you want to evaluate where you are in this journey, look around your personal world. Is it thriving? Is it healthy? Are lives in order? Are people doing well? Okay. Or is there disarray and chaos and conflict and darkness?
I choose the aforementioned, not the latter.
Yes.
That leads me into another point, which I'm kind of skipping around here, Sandy. Learn, because growth and learning go hand in hand. And you mentioned it earlier, Randy, that you and we should be lifelong students. So choosing to be a lifelong student, pick a language that you want to learn, a culture that you want to study, or an author whose book you want to read. Unpack a little bit about the importance of growth and learning, working together in tandem.
I've seen the statistics that most people, when they graduate from high school or college, read an average of 2 or 3 more books in their lifetime.
Only 2 or 3 in their whole lifetime?
In their lifetime. Those are the statistics I have seen, yes. Now keep in mind, there are bad lies in statistics, okay? So I don't know how true those statistics are, but that's what I have read, okay? But learning is a choice. I'll give you a personal example. I grew up in a small town in a place and a time that no longer exists. My world was entirely defined by family, work, school, and church. There was nothing else in my world. And until I was 16 years old before I realized that just because people were different from me did not mean that they were wrong. Now, what I've just shared with you is not good or bad, right or wrong. That was just one person's experience, okay? And so the emphasis on learning is this, that as we learn, we realize that human beings, regardless of their background, their original language, their perceptions and views of the world, most of us as humans have much more in common than we do that separates us. And that the way we can have an influence on someone's life is by focusing on what we have in common rather than focusing on the things that are different about us. So that's one of the things that I have learned through choosing to learn.
I'd say that's very important. And what you mentioned, the statistics about literature itself, today, much like we are here recording this podcast together, I find that people are turning to different avenues for that learning. And like you said, Randy, it is a choice. I choose to select and subscribe to this podcast, and I choose to continue to dive in to the journey and learn from you guys. Sandy, I apologize. I'm not meaning to leave you out.
No.
We're going to skip over Randy's other talking point, and we're going to go straight into yours, and then we'll bounce back to Randy. So here we have grace and rest, and they go hand in hand. And I can't think of anybody more graceful to describe the two.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
How kind. Just for a moment, if I may, just to add one part to what Randy was sharing in terms of growth, and I'm going to need y'all to chime in on this one. What is it? There's a saying that if you're not growing, you are
Remaining stagnant?
Is that what it is, or is it dying? I don't want to say that if that's not right. Maybe someone can let us know that one.
I know that it's if you're growing, you're going.
Yeah.
That's something, you're just keeping going, but I don't think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Do you know what it is, Randy?
I know the quote you're referencing, but
Yeah.
I just don't know. Maybe one of our listeners can shoot us an email or go to our website and make a post or something, but let us know if somebody knows what that quote is, please let us know. And if you know who it's attributed to, let us know that as well so we can give good credit.
Yeah,
So-
that just kept playing through my head, and it's such a good thing to remember. And I know that as we get older and we talk to people who have chosen to retire, when retirement isn't sit in a rocking chair or whatever.
Not anymore, it's not.
No. And, it's a time to really just enjoy your life and serve a different purpose. And so that was part of what came to my mind when we were thinking about growth, because we're never too old to learn and learning. So those were the two kind of the one you were talking about, holding hands in hand. But in terms of grace, it's one of the things that we believe is that you need to show grace to others and grace to ourselves. I believe, and especially with social media having such a platform today, that so many people don't see who they are or how they perceive themselves differently because of what they read. And so they don't show themselves any grace. And that is one of the things that
Oh, we just had a caller.
Sorry, we
had a caller call in. And what is the quote?
Distracted. So it is, if you're not growing, you're dying. So hey, I was right. Write that one down. So we still would be interested to find out who actually wrote that. But I thought dying just sounded harsh.
Yeah.
But in terms of grace, so just showing it to ourselves. I am not someone who's really great about showing grace to myself. I have a perfectionist nature, and so I honestly don't get on social media much because my tendency is everybody seems to have a perfect life. So then, so that's kind of where grace comes in. And for me, even more so would be is how we show grace to one another. One thing that has come to mind in my morning, in my quiet times, is that trust a person's heart. I don't think sometimes their actions may seem to be not in line with who they are, what they mean. Like they may say something or, for example, post something that doesn't seem to line up with who you know them to be. Trust that. Then go to them and talk to them about it. But that's kind of also where I feel like grace is such an important part of who we are and how we respond to one another. We need to show that grace. And I think if we do more of that, we would have less issues and less conflict.
I would agree. And I have to say, just personally, I think I exercise it towards others, but we, especially as gals, should also have that towards ourselves.
So you have the same issues.
Yeah, I'm
do
a little
not
bit of a
stand
perfectionist
alone.
too.
Yeah. I can relate to that one. I don't stand alone. So yeah, that's why I believe grace is so important.
And then from grace, talking about rest, because in stewardship, or any of these things, responsibility, we have to be our best selves in order to give and serve others. So rest is a big part of that. And I can tell you that's not something I do well. So tell me about how rest kind of intertwines with this mission.
Yeah, rest. Again, I'm not doing that well. It is something I am striving for and trying to focus on. And it is a choice. We have to choose to make time to rest. Biblically, we're supposed to work days and work 6 days and have one day off. Yeah. And so whether that be your Saturday or your Sunday or whatever day, there needs to be a day of rest. And rest doesn't mean you go to bed and sleep all day. It just means taking time to maybe do some of that personal development or spend time with the people you care about. That's the rest time. But if you are tired, then you sleep. If you sleep all day, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You may need to sleep all day, you know? So yeah, rest is such a key part because it sharpens our mind. It gives us the energy to go on and to do more and to do the other things that we've mentioned, which is to help serve others. If we're not our best, how can we be our best and help somebody else? So
I agree. And it's very important just to turn it off, like you said, to flip that switch off, to disconnect from the internet or the TV, especially with what's going on in the world today, just to let your mind rest and kind of recalibrate.
Yep. Yes.
Now, I did skip over responsibility, and that kind of goes hand in hand, Randy, with what we were talking about earlier. But responsibility, choosing to take a complete responsibility for yourself and all that comes underneath your domain, and choosing to wear the mantle of responsibility with grace and dignity. Now, some things that we're responsible for are not graceful at all. There's a lot of nitty-gritty in responsibility. Am I correct? The wide range of responsibility that you have within your life, your family, to your clients, to anybody that you serve, and having to do so with grace and dignity at all times.
Yeah, each of us have a journey, a path to walk, if you will, and simply by choosing to be adults, which I heard John Maxwell say one time. This is maybe totally off the subject, but he said there's a thought that with age comes maturity, and he said sometimes age comes alone.
Or maturity comes before that age mark.
Yeah, I said sometimes age just comes by itself. It doesn't bring maturity with it. Yeah. So on the responsibility side, each of us have different responsibilities. We serve in roles as a son or daughter, sometimes as a husband and wife, as a friend, as a work colleague, as a boss. We play so many as a parent. And we play so many different roles. And with each of those roles can come certain responsibilities. And I can tell you from personal experience, there are times when, because of the role that I have chosen, keeping in mind that many of the roles we play are roles that we choose. Some just come by virtue of birth, others come, most others are ones that we choose. So when we choose a specific role, I've learned that it really adds no value to anyone's life, including my own, if I whine, moan, and complain about the responsibilities that come with it.
If it was your choice.
No one's listening. Nobody else cares.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like get over it, get on with it. So even the attitude, though, conveyed by that comment, get over it, get on with it, is not necessarily approaching it with an attitude of grace and dignity. Because I'll give you an example from my personal and professional life. I have more than once watched clients care for aging parents. And I have watched clients, a married couple, who intentionally chose to move across the country from each other because each of them had a mother living. One mother was in this part of the country, another mother was in that part of the country. Both mothers were dying at the same time, and they chose to literally winterize their home. One moved to the West Coast, one moved to the Southwest, and were apart. You know, they had no children responsibilities. And they spent that time 6 or 8 months apart. They'd fly in to a weekend, a quarter, something like that. Mm-hmm. But that's simply what they chose to do. But their mothers need to be cared for. Were there brothers and sisters and some of that? Yes. That's immaterial. They were the ones. That was their responsibility, so they simply took care of it. I've also watched situations similar to that when those clients needed to come out of pocket, pay for their parents' care. They just wrote the checks. No whining, no complaining, no, this isn't fair. Brothers and sisters, could they have, did they?
Irrelevant.
Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Parents had to be taken care of. They stood in. They stepped in. Okay?
They took responsibility.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There's a phrase from the ancient writers, and he's talking about how to prepare yourself. And after he finishes this soliloquy about how to prepare yourself, he says, having done all, stand. Okay? And so part of responsibility is simply choosing to stand in with an attitude of gratefulness. It doesn't matter how difficult it may be at a given time. It doesn't matter how unpleasant it may be personally. You simply do what falls on your plate, work with a team, hand off what you can, but at some point decisions have to be made, things have to be taken care of, and if that falls to you, be grateful be grateful that you have the health to do it and the desire to get it done, and this too will pass. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to explain it. That's it.
Are you sure you're not a philosopher?
No, I just no, no. I spend a good bit of time, reading and journaling and thinking and some things like this. But no, I've nobody's ever accused me of being a philosopher. So
must be those 3 extra books he reads a year.
Yes. Over the 2. Yeah.
I gotta tell you made the reference to John Maxwell earlier, and I did just want to tell you the quote that we were circling around, Sandy, derived from Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They'll live or die. Also, Lou Holtz has been attributed to saying something similar to fulfill that curiosity out there. Within the realm of all of the topics that we discussed, we'll finish with faithfulness. And faithfulness is a choice to be faithful to those whom we've committed and to our calling and purpose. The primary mandate is not success or glory or accomplishment. The primary mandate is faithfulness. Now, we reiterated faithfulness a couple times within that little paragraph. So obviously that's the takeaway. So within faithfulness, Randy and Sandy, tie that into all of the topics that we've discussed within the choices.
Oh, goodness. Part of the concept of faithfulness goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago when I was describing that, I had no desire to be an NBA basketball player, which is perfect fit with my physical abilities, right? And in that concept that, in some of the self-help or personal growth philosophies, there's this concept that you can be anything you want to be. My experience with people is we have all been given certain gifts and talents, things that we're really good at, a heart to do certain things, a desire to pursue certain paths. And the opportunity in front of us is to give time to thought and reflection, and to get counsel from others so that we're clear on what those are, so that we can maximize the development of those specific gifts and talents. And when I was 25 years old, which has been a couple of years, well, actually several decades now, but I digress. When I was 25 years old, I used to read what was called the Forbes 400. And there was
I think that's still around.
Yeah, there was a point in the 20th century where the Forbes magazine was called Capitalist Tool. That time has passed now, but Malcolm Forbes Jr., his slogan was Capitalist Tool, and they used to run a series every year called the Forbes 400, and it showcased the 400 richest people, first in America, then in the world, and so on and so forth. And so when I was 25 years old, I would read this and look for the 25-year-olds that were on that list. And you talk about messing with your head. That is an absolute worthless activity. It adds no value to me. It certainly has no impact on the 25-year-olds who are on that list. They don't even know who I am. The point is, it is a fruitless exercise to compare our personal experience and our personal journey with anyone else's. We each have been given a path. This one thing I do, one of the ancient writers said, this one thing I do. He did not say this 1,000 things I do. He said this one thing I do, all right? And he was one of the most successful, outside of the person of Jesus, this person had the greatest impact in the world of any other person, okay? And he said this one thing I do, all right? So faithfulness speaks to the process of first identifying that path that each of us have, and then choosing to walk down that path, always making time for reflection, for learning, for gaining wisdom, insight, understanding, and discernment, by choosing to be humble enough to ask for, receive, and apply advice and counsel from those who are farther along the journey than we are, but faithfulness to that calling, to the purpose that we have identified. Okay, because the calling first is not to the largest financial statement. It's not to glory on the battlefield or the basketball court, and it's not to accomplishment of any sort of description, not to the glory or accomplishment or to financial success.
It's faith.
The first call is to be faithful, okay? When we make a commitment, the way we describe it internally at our firm is when we choose to work with a client. I'll give you this example. Right. When we say yes to a client, we have made a lifelong commitment to serve that household and that business as long as they want us to help them. They can leave us, we will not leave them. When we attend practice management breakout sessions at professional conferences, you'll hear these practice management types and consultants. By the way, you know what a consultant is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a eunuch. They can tell you all about it, they just can't do it. So, and they'll talk about how you structure your business to maximize profitability. Well, first of all, maximizing profitability is not a corporate goal of ours. Being profitable, certainly we have to be profitable to be here to continue to serve those who have come to us and ask for help. But maximize profitability, that's the MBA class. We don't run an MBA business. We run a family-owned operation that serves other families, okay, other family-owned businesses. So these practice management types will say, get rid of these clients and get rid of these clients and, basically fire your clients because they don't fit whatever predefined thing. And faithfulness in business is being true to your clients and your team members. I hired Sandy. I hired Stephanie. I hired this person, because I saw something in them that I thought would add value to our clients and to the firm. So it's my responsibility to remain faithful to them, to help them to become all that they were created to be, to maximize their impact on those that we serve. That's faithfulness. In a marriage, to your word. If you say somebody, you'll send them a check, send them a check. Keep short accounts in your relationships, keep your bills paid, so on and so forth. Faithfulness.
It sounds like you lead by example through the service that you provide to your firm. You are faithful to your clients, and you have faith in what you do as a firm. Again, I'm speaking with Randy Brunson and Sandy LaRue of Centurion Advisory Group, and we are on stewarding family wealth. Randy and Sandy, as we come near the end of the show, is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with, as we will pick up next week, continuing with this choices and the core values from the commentary that you're so kind to send out? I do just want to let our listeners know where they can find information on the commentary, because I'm sitting here looking at it and I receive your emails and I appreciate all of the information that you send me. So if someone were interested in reading this literature that we're referring to, you can visit www.centurionag.com, and that's CENTURIONAG.com. Randy and Sandy, any final words?
We are simply grateful for the opportunity to be here. We're grateful for the opportunity to serve, and very grateful for you and your willingness to host this podcast for us. Thank you, Amanda.
It is my pleasure. As I was telling Mike, I could talk to you for 4 hours, Randy, so we'll just have to keep it on the 30-minute mark, but we can talk for another 30 minutes after the show.
Sounds good.
I am thrilled to be a part of this this trailblazing series, and I know that we're going to impede all of our listeners with a wealth of information. So again, for those of you listening out there, if you'd like to connect with Randy or Sandy on social media, Centurion Advisory Group is on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can visit their website to see all about the services that they offer, or maybe you want to book an appointment with either one of them. Again, that's www.centurionag.com. And until next time, you have been listening to Stewarding Family Wealth. I am Amanda Pierce, and we'll see you soon.